Call to order the October 17th, 2023 meeting of the North Andover Planning Board. Gene, would you mind taking roll, please?
Sure. Chris Kosaris.
Here.
Sean Kevelin.
Here.
John Simons.
Here.
Eitan Goldberg.
Here.
Peter Boynton.
Aye.
Gemma Wilkins.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Gemma. Started early. Trying to move things along. A&R Plan 9022 Dale Street, Joseph McCarthy. Request to subdivide, well, not subdivide, request to divide parcel into two lots.
Okay, so I indicated on the staff report that some additional information was requested from the A&R, one of which was the contiguous buildable area. So just to get everybody orientated, the subject lot is the corner of Winter Street and Dale Street. So this is Winter, Glendale, Russet Lane. It's a 5.2 acre lot. The A&R plan proposes to subdivide the lot where this is the proposed lot line. You guys can't see my cursor, right? If you look, okay, so proposed lot line is here. There's an existing dwelling here, driveway, and a barn structure. The proposed new lot is Lot 2 at essentially a few feet over 2 acres, which is the minimum zoning requirement. It leaves 3.2 acres on the proposed Lot 1. Now, as you know, to create a lot since 1986, there's a zoning requirement for contiguous buildable area to be at least 75% of the minimum area required, so that's 65,000 square feet on the 2 acre zone. So the building commissioner asked for the wetland, for the CBA calculation. That then came in at 100%. However, we know it's not 100%. So here's the lot in total. Here's the wetlands depicted on the Mass GIS layer. And then sorry, one second. So we discussed this recently in an A&R for Salem Street. So the building commissioner interprets the zoning bylaw requirement to include not only the area of the wetland itself, but the buffer zone to that wetland. So I've drawn 100 feet out in these blue lines or less, because sometimes the property line is closer than 100 feet. So that entire area will be included in the CBA calculation to not be upland. And as you can see from the A&R, that's essentially the entire lot remaining on Lot 2. So I can't imagine that it could be compliant with CBA. He'd be making his own lot non-conforming, which you can't do. Until we get a wetland delineation, I can't say for certain, but it's obviously, it's almost the entire lot would be either buffer zone or the wetland. And so I've explained to the applicant that I don't think it's approvable. It's infectious invalidity. He's creating his own nonconformity. There's a process that should he get it delineated, that potentially can get a variance from ZBA and then an A&R plan. There's somebody here that is a potential purchaser of the new lot. The applicant is Joe McCarthy. He couldn't make it tonight, but I guess he does have some comments or questions of the board.
Okay.
My name is Chip.
Well,
Just come up to the podium
come up
here.
to the podium.
My name is Chip Gonzalez.
Joe asked me to ask a question that may or may not have a follow-up, and I am interested in the other property. I'm related to Joe by marriage and grew up in Andover, so I'm interested in the additional lot. He had asked if there was any historical measurement of what the wetlands was with the town, or is that something that needs to be done contemporaneously with a subdivision?
So I know he's working with the Conservation Commission right now, at least the administrator. A portion of those wetlands was delineated back in 1999, I want to say. They're allowing him to use that plan because he's proposing to remove some of his barn, to demo some of the barn. And so they've allowed him to work off of that. Amy has checked that. But I don't know of any plan that depicted the entire wetland and the buffer zone to that wetland.
Okay, so if there's no town estimate, then that's why the suggestion was to have a wetlands engineer get a new estimate. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it's definitely not 100%, right? So we know that. So the plan is not accurate, so we can't really, one problem is we can't endorse a plan that's not accurate. So you need to know where the wetlands are. And then, assuming the wetlands are close to what the GIS, what the map is showing, there's not going to be enough upland to be a conforming lot. So what you seem to need to do is map it, figure out what you actually need for a variance, get a variance, and then can come for an A&R, right?
Yeah, and it's the
That-
same plan. It's a variance plan and an A&R plan. It just
Right.
has two signature blocks, one for ZBA and one for planning. Planning can't endorse it until ZBA provides the relief. And, I mean, the issue here is the upland is being split off. I mean, that's what's happening. So,
John, did you have something you wanted to say?
Just the only comment is that I believe there's a clock on this, and we're not going to get this resolved soon.
Right.
So either they withdraw the application, or we have to deny it.
I think
so
we have to-
there's no provision to withdraw. You have to deny it. And the next planning board meeting is further than 21 days out, and so you're right. The shot clock is 21 days, and you don't meet again before that.
So-
Nor could they get this done.
Right,
You
so,
can withdraw.
It's either approve or deny within 21 days. You got to take action within 21.
Okay.
either way, this particular plan does not meet the requirements. It doesn't prevent you from coming back with a different plan that does. So, just, we can't endorse this plan, but you can come back with something else. So this doesn't prevent you from coming back with something else in
Okay, thank you.
the future.
So,
And this plan can be used to delineate the wetlands, too.
Right.
They can use this as a base as long as this surveyor is a wetland scientist. It's not,
And then I would make a motion to deny the Form A, this specific Form A for the reasons enumerated in discussion.
Motion made.
So moved.
All in favor of the motion?
Aye?
Aye. Okay, so this A&R is not approved, but you can definitely still come back, fix the plan, get the delineation, talk to someone about it, see what you can do with the variance. I mean, it doesn't seem like seems like it's a good idea. Love to have you here and use that property even better. Just gotta go through the details, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, you're welcome. All right, 315, so 189 Willow Street, we already continued until November 7th, right?
yep.
Okay. 315 Turnpike Street, application for limited site plan review under Article 8, Part 3 site plan review. Excuse me. Article 10 Administration, Section 195, 10.7, the North Andover zoning bylaw. Applicant proposes construction on Merrimack College campus of a 77,600 square foot building situated along Turnpike Street and a 62,000 square foot building situated along Andover Street. Both buildings are comprised of academic and residential space for college use. The site is located in the residential 3 zoning district. Before we hear from you guys, we're going to just briefly go over the site visit that we did yesterday, so I can just let people know about what we did, and then I'd like people to make any comments or thoughts you had about the site visit, and then we'll go into the presentation. Okay, so we did a site visit yesterday at Merrimack College. I know myself and John and Sean were there. Peter came afterwards. I know you guys were not able to make it yesterday. They had staked off both of the buildings at all the different corners. They had put up very large balloons to indicate the height. I thought it was very helpful myself in seeing the proximity of the buildings to each other, the proximity of the buildings to the street and the fence and things like that, the amount of open space, the comparison of the balloons to the trees that are currently there and the heights. That was a helpful comparison, as well as some of the view corridors with the different buildings. For me, height comparisons to some of the other buildings were just a little bit harder. I don't know if that's just my depth perception, but for me, the tree comparisons was helpful. So I thought it was a helpful thing to do, and I found that the way it was done was very well done. Sometimes we've had balloon tests where the balloons are sideways or floating off or tiny, you can't see. So it was very well done. So anybody else, if they had any comments about what you saw, or if you noticed anything, or if anything caught your eye about, when you were doing it?
It's one of the best staked out and balloon site visits that I've seen. So thank you for doing that.
Okay. All right, great. Well, let's continue on.
Okay. Jeff Doggett, Executive Vice President and resident of 84 Johnson Street. Appreciate being back again. The goal of this presentation is to respond to the questions that were brought up at the last meeting. And so what we're going to do is, these are all by chapter. What was the question or the topic? I'll tee it up. Jeff Ketteretz from VHB is going to respond and walk through that. And then if we're good with that one, we'll go to the next one, and we'll just go through all of these until we've exhausted those. And as always, we're happy to answer questions or take comments along the way.
Okay, Gene, are there any questions or comments that have come in by email?
No.
Okay. If there, so let's do it this way. So if, you said it by chapter, so let's do a chapter. If anybody has questions about that chapter or comments, make questions about those comments. If there's any members of the public that has on a certain chapter, we'll do it rather than wait to the end and then go back. So we'll just do it by chapter with questions and comments from the board and members of the public. We'll do it that way for this.
Great.
John, there is a resident comment in the packet. I
Okay.
don't know if you meant specifically
Yep.
right now or
No,
previously,
in
but
the
there
pack,
is
so
one.
there's one in the packet,
Yep.
so that's, all right, so, and,
There's two.
okay. Do we know kind of what they're,
So, I'm sorry, it's all one. They attached the invitation to the community meeting,
yeah,
and the other one is just speaking to the size.
okay.
Or,
All right, so I'll figure out when to get to do, we'll do those, but I'll figure out when the best time is. Okay. All right,
Okay. All right. So why don't you, if you could just jump to the next one. So the first was Mr. Boynton's question, which was specific to where does water and sewer, right? Because we had shown the next slide was the slide we showed at the last meeting, and the question was how much of the North Andover water is there taken, right? And then what buildings on the campus on the North Andover side drew from the North Andover system. I'll let Jeff respond. It's on the next slide.
Sure. Jeff Gedderts with VHB. So just following on that, we pulled some information from previous water meter readings for everything from the North Andover buildings. So listed below are the buildings on campus that are served by the North Andover water system. And above, based on that reading, is just a quick comparison. So we pulled the annual readings from the town from fiscal year, for the year October 22 through 23. And if we equate that to what our proposed daily demand is, we do include a 2 times or 200% peaking factor when we're comparing the estimated rates to the actual one. So that puts this project at about an 8% increase over the current draw on campus.
okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
And what percentage, Merrimack, of the total water pull in the town?
Oh, boy.
I'm just trying to get, I mean, it's an 8% increase, but I mean, is Merrimack more than a couple percent of the total water pulled from the town? Just,
I'm trying to dig back to when we were looking at this with Royal Crest, and oh boy, I hate to throw a number out without being able to back it up. I might need to I might need to dig back to that
it's
if I
not
could.
a big deal, I'm just trying to get a.
I had like
magnitude here.
6 to 8 million gallon per day capacity of the reservoir, but don't quote me on that, please.
So how do you get 8%?
Oh,
So
Yeah.
of the current consumption, so
it's
the
like 16.
yeah, we're taking the annual.
I'm getting 16%.
The only difference is under Title V, if the rates that we use to generate the estimated demand are to pick a peak flow out, which isn't necessarily an average over the course of the day. So those rates there's a 2 times peaking factor in there. And under Title V, if you're comparing it to previous water meter readings for as close to an apples-to-apples comparison, you're supposed to take 200% of what your annual readings are. So that's why we had doubled it. Without that peaking factor, yes, it would be 16%.
But if you're at roughly 240 today and you're adding 40, I mean, are those real numbers?
That's a averaged out to a daily. So it's the annual reading is over the course of a year, and we're breaking that down to an average daily flow.
Chris Lowen, also with VHB. So the forecasted number is the Title V number, and that is a peaked number. So it's 2 times what the daily flow would be. That's the peak flow compared to the actual water readings is actually what it shows exactly what's been pulled from the system.
So you're telling us that your forecasted consumption annually is 7 million, not 14 million. 14 million is doubling what you,
The current consumption's actually doubled to peak it.
say that again?
The actual water readings are doubled to provide the peaking factor. So we doubled the top number, not the.
So you're
The
saying
245 is
that
doubled.
45 million is your annual and you doubled it to 90 or 89?
So the number shown on the chart is the actual readings. And to do the comparison, we doubled those. Because the 39 is a peaked number. So the actual, what we would really suspect is what we would really forecast is 20,000 gallons a day, but that's doubled because you
So
want to peak
that's
it for worst case.
Footnote number 2,
Yeah.
documenting that. Thank you.
I'm presuming you intend to use low flow, like water sense, toilets, shower heads?
Correct. And this number does not technically account for that. This is based on the Title V rates from back in the 90s before, or 70s, sorry, before a lot of those. So there's an additional conservatism in that number. But yes, the intent is to use those.
So let me just be clear on this. I understand you're doubling, but let's say, leave out the Title V requirement. Could I call, without the Title V, could I call that actual? Actual predicted compared to actual previous?
If we were saying actual predicted, I would probably take half of that 39,000. I think that's an accurate.
And so the 8% is showing what I'm labeling as actual.
Correct.
And the 16% is showing the doubling.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Good on that one?
Good.
Yep.
Next one.
Okay, we're off to a good start. Okay, stormwater. So you go up to the map. So this is in response to the question that had come up from the 2 individuals that lived close to the Shawshene River in Andover. And their question was really 2. One was specific to the project, which was, is this project going to generate more stormwater that was going to go into the system? And then their second point, which was, I think, their main one, which is they understood they had a culvert that is actually under their property, and they understood that there was a direct line from the campus to that culvert, and they needed clarification. Had asked this process to work through that. What you're about ready to see are the exact slides that I walked through with them when we met last Thursday. They had prior to that had a meeting with the DPW at Andover, which provided them either similar or exactly the same, because we had much of this we got as part of a conversation we had with the Andover DPW. And I'll let Jeff speak to the specifics of each. We'll go through the where does the water go first? Because I think that then generates the next question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. I'll try to be not too long on this, but so the slide here, this is kind of the best snapshot at the pre-stormwater master plan conditions called 1999-2000, and the areas highlighted are the catchment areas associated with portions of the college. The blue area, predominantly the main campus that was tributary to roughly where that yellow line is running down Rock Ridge Road, and then discharges at the southern of the three green arrows, just on the west side of Elm Street. The red area is portions of the west side of Elm Street that flowed southwesterly into eventually tying into that same stream. And then the last one, separate of those watersheds, the pink drains northwesterly or westerly on the plan and around the green area that circulates down. All three of them converging right where Gene's cursor is there. So predominantly the yellow lines are indicated for the most part as closed culverts. Couple we'll get to a close-up view, but the majority of those green arrows are intermittent streams, open channels. But everything flows generally southwesterly towards the bottom of the page. So this is where conditions of essentially water running through this entire area, a lot of it being ponding up on the campus property, and this is kind of what spurred the stormwater master plan for them to create the two detention basins.
And before we go to the next slide, Jeff, can you just explain really quickly, under this condition, what was the problem that Andover was seeking to address?
So yeah, the problem was the significant watershed area, generally going from right to left on the page, and it was really not being stored. It was ponding up through some wetland systems in the middle of the college, but it was just a significant amount of watershed area, both upstream, within, and downstream, flowing into roughly the yellow line further downstream, but really all the neighborhoods to the south, going down to where the cursor is at High Street.
So there was significant flooding going on in all of those areas.
And my memory is that topographically, the north is higher elevation and the south is lower elevation.
Right is higher than the left.
Yeah, kind of
Yep.
top right to bottom left in general. Yeah.
Okay.
So what came out of this was the construction of two detention basins. This is the football field basin, which is situated around the Martone-Mahale Field off Walshway within the campus. This is, we'll get to another map, but this is roughly in the center of that blue area we were just looking at, the southern portion of the athletics complex. And the second basin is the Elm Street Basin on the west side of Elm Street. That plan you're looking at, north is down, just for a flip there, but created a significant detention basin there and a collection pipe that diverted a significant amount of drainage that was previously going to that yellow line we were looking at, pulled it out of that system through the Rock Ridge Road neighborhood and into this new detention basin. So I guess flash forward after those basin improvements, this is what the resultant watershed map is from those basins and also over various project efforts to date since. So I might flag the blue area first. The blue area was what was running off through this watershed and straight into the drainage system, into the downstream channels without being attenuated. The yellow area is what was captured out of that original blue area and diverted to those two football field basins. That's all one connected system and actually uses part of the stone underneath the football field in between as well. Still outlets to that yellow outlet pipe, but provides significant detention and attenuation, and a substantial amount of water is still held on the college campus to slow that out. The red areas indicate the areas that have been diverted to the Elm Street Basin that was created. Majority of the northern portion of campus, as well as the, when we did the South Residential Village in Andover, there was an opportunity to divert that to the Elm Street Basin as well and pull it out of the blue watershed. So as each of these projects have been occurring through the Stormwater Master Plan, the goal has been to pull it out of the blue areas and get it to some detention where it was in the Stormwater Master Plan. And then again, just want to flag the pink area remained outside of these watersheds that were draining to those two basins.
The culvert that I asked about last night, how does that fit in? That's further up, right?
It's just above Gene's cursor, a little north of the town line there. Yeah, a little up, and we've got that highlighted on one of these next slides. I'll make sure to call that out. So this is the same view, just taking one more step back in the camera to chase those green paths down to the Shawshene River. So, and here again, the green lines reflect open channel flow, whether it's an intermittent stream or wetland resource area or just open land where the water's flowing. The yellow represents closed drainage culverts, so a below grade pipe of some sorts, whether crossing streets or running under train tracks and right-of-ways.
We'll take questions at the end of each chapter rather than interrupting each slide, okay?
Sure.
I'm just not sure on the map where everything is. I live in Lower Shawshene, and I live down from the YMCA. And there is a stream that was way back when Willingwood put all that entire stream.
Okay, so why don't we, let's get through the slides and then we can come back to that, okay?
I just don't know when he's talking about it because the slides are so small. What area you're talking about?
Okay.
Okay, this is an overall, I mean, this is going everywhere for now.
I'll be a little more descriptive here.
Okay, thanks.
As you're describing, can you reference
Sure.
landmarks
Sure.
on the map, maybe asking Jean to move her cursor, for example, where is the YMCA, where's the Shawshene River, et cetera?
Sure. So yeah, maybe starting at Elm Street where those three drainage channels converge, and then moving southwesterly, they all tie. The YMCA is actually right right there. Yep. So at that point, it's two separate channels just south of the YMCA that flow, and then they all meet at one point just upstream a touch. Yeah, right there is where ultimately everything that drains across the campus ends up in that location and then continues to head
Jeff,
downstream.
Can I just stop for a second? Because at this point, I just want to make sure, because you just said it yourself, can you just cover what the black dotted lines are? Because at that point, it's not just the Merrimack colleges draining into that area. Right?
Correct. Yeah, no, thank you, Jeff. So yeah, sorry, the areas hatched is just what was either campus property or part of the Stormwater Master Plan. The dashed black line there represents the approximate, it was the Berry Brook watershed, and that is the area that is tributary to the culvert that crosses under High Street, which is right where Gene's cursor is there. So that Merrimack campus portion of that is roughly 25% maybe of that overall dashed black watershed area. So what happens at where Gene's cursor is there, watershed from that black dashed line collects, and back in the 30s there was a diversion structure installed at that location that sent primary flows to the south and through a 39-inch culvert, and then in the event that culvert was exceeded, there would be an overflow to the west and the north into an existing wetland system and eventually down the path. So the primary flow from the south of that manhole is predominantly closed pipe. As you can see, the yellow line, it heads south, just west of High Street. It crosses under the railroad tracks. Opens up in a small wetland just before it crosses the railroad tracks. That little green line there, culverted under the tracks again, and then it to a channel and discharges to the Shawsheen River.
John, can you point out where approximately the neighborhood is of the two gentlemen that were at the first meeting?
Yes. So if you see Andover Landing, it's just southwest of there, where the yellow arrow is on the left branch, right about there. Yeah, roughly in there. So the alternate path from that regulating manhole, once the capacity of the pipe to the south is exceeded, we understand from the original study that was done that flows are roughly split between going south and then following the trail that Gene's highlighting now. That green stretch is a good-sized wetland resource area that's collecting, and I guess all these areas downstream of this manhole are picking up additional watershed from that black. Oh yeah. This is just another maybe cleaner map to see the highlights of the drainage past the yellow branch where it splits off the regulating manhole in the middle, roughly in the middle of the page there. The primary route heading south and the overflow heading to the north and the west. And this map is overlaid on the FEMA floodplain mapping that designate the floodplain areas for the 100 and 500 year flood events backing up from the Shawsheen River. So.
So, and what you're showing us now is the current conditions?
Correct. This is an enlargement of where that regulating manhole is and the drainage split. So, Gene, sorry, the kind of bottom right of where your cursor is, the red arrow at High Street. Yep. So that's where the regulating manhole is.
That's High Street in Andover?
Correct. So the primary route is that green drain line that heads south. South, and yes, correct. That's that line that we had highlighted in yellow before, and then the overflow runs between that blue. Blue is the approximate wetland areas. Correct. That drains and heads down westerly to the Shawsheen. So that blue area is picking up a significant amount of drainage from other sources as well. We just wanted to highlight some of those other inlets.
Prior to that diversion, Jeff, everything drained north.
Correct.
The diversion was put in to pull some of that south.
Correct.
In the hard pipe it.
Okay.
And then I think the next slide is just a quick enlargement of that, just flagging that.
So this is all in
resource
Andover,
area.
right?
This is Andover, yes. High Street's right where Gene's cursor was there. So.
Okay. Why don't we,
Just highlighting that drainage
huh?
path.
Why don't we continue?
So if you want to go back up, Gene.
Oh,
back
well-
up to one of the bigger map there, because where the first question came up of where does everything situate, so anyone can ask that question, and that's probably the best map. You can keep going up. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going. This one right here. So in fairness to the two gentlemen that I said to this committee I would follow up with, we probably spent the most amount of time on this map, because this is the one that their greatest concern was, what is there in fact a direct link between the institution and nothing else? And our first takeaway of this was there's an entire watershed area that's feeding into one central place, that the Merrimack side of that is actually not just Merrimack's campus, but what's up 125 and 114. that it's actually entering, all that green line is obviously all open land. It's big wetland area, so there's enough capturing in there. And then on a regular day, it's not routed toward the culvert that's on their property at all. It's in the event of that the 39-inch pipe, as Jeff described it, goes then into another water, a wetland area before it gets there. And obviously there's as you saw with all those red arrows, there's a lot of inputs into that wetland than just whatever's coming out of the watershed area noted in the dotted lines.
Okay. So I'm glad we could facilitate that conversation, but the question really for us is, what does this project do to?
Correct.
So this is
Yep.
historical data, present time, what's going on right now. So it's good to have that
Yep.
basis. I assume the next
Yes,
slide we're going to get
is
to
back to ours.
is what
Yes.
actually happens if this project gets approved.
Yep.
Okay, let's
Yep.
go to that.
Okay, so we're gonna zoom in on that pink
Gene, if you
portion.
could just keep going, we'll go right to the map, and we'll answer John's question as well.
Sure. So this is a zoom in of that pink boundary. That's the northern corner.
Okay, so
And-
now we're looking at Turnpike Street and the
Correct.
corner of Andover in the area where the proposed project is proposed for.
Correct.
Okay.
Collegiate Church is to the bottom right there, and a portion of Austin Hall that does drain to this area. So what we've done is we've
Jeff, hold on, and the culvert that John was asking about is,
correct, the
That
middle one right there. Yep. So the yellow highlights here is where the drainage leaves this watershed area, and all end up in what's noted as DP1, design point 1 there, which is a pipe that runs down the hill and then southwesterly and discharges at a wetland resource area just on the other side of the town line. So the three crossings there, the northernmost one is a series of catch basins within Andover Street, and that's part of Mass DOT's drainage system. As Jeff said, the middle crossing, John, is that head wall we were looking at. That ties into a trunk line that runs along the west side, and that trunk line runs south to north, and then down DP1. And the third crossing picks up a portion of existing campus drainage towards the main entry that crosses Elm Street and then heads north. So this is the current condition of the watershed area and where it's going now. And then if we flip to the second, so with the proposed, our goal here was to not change any of those watershed boundaries. What we're looking to do is take some of the water that is draining through the campus connection, and we're showing a fourth connection at the northernmost end of those yellow lines to support the new project, and that's the overflow of the proposed development. Also want to highlight in particular the three tealish boxes there, and those are the proposed subsurface stormwater systems, and those are the systems that allow us to attenuate and give the water a chance to infiltrate into the ground so we can slow it up and gradually release it over time. And that allows us to reduce the peak flows and volumes, leaving this pink boundary and what's going to DP1. There's a same table we shared last week at the bottom right for an example of our typical design storm for a collection system. In the current conditions, the slide we were just looking at, there's approximately 40 CFS is our peak flow to that design point 1. By using these below grade storage systems, we'll reduce that to 36 CFS, so a 4 CFS reduction due to those improvements.
And what, Gene, where do we stand with our peer review of the stormwater?
So it's complete. There was one item that was deferred to the planning board to weigh in whether you want a condition or not, but otherwise it's signed off on.
Okay.
Just a quick question, just the nomenclature unit. So CFS is that cubic feet per second?
Correct.
Okay.
Gene, maybe the next slide, just to give some context on those stormwater systems, we wanted to, so really what it is, you know, we are increasing impervious area over the current conditions. It's about 1.5 acres of new impervious. And this is just some examples of the system we're using. We're proposing, it's called a storm trap system that is open bottom precast units, provide storage of stormwater that we can slowly detain it out or slowly let it out, but at the same time it's allowing the water to infiltrate into the ground to best mimic the current conditions. So just wanted to include some graphics here for a visual of what those box systems look like.
Okay. Does anyone have, before we move on to renderings, does anyone have any questions or comments about the stormwater stuff that we just talked about? Board members, public members? Good.
I wasn't sure Andover residents are allowed to speak, so.
Yep.
Rob Ackerman, 13 Carisbrook Street in Andover. Just a question, just so I can understand better. So we have these two waterway, there's a main waterway and it gets diverted to this other one if that one is getting overwhelmed. Would that be accurate to say?
Correct.
And so, but the other one at the same time, which is going on in our neighborhood, is a lot is already feeding into that. So I guess my question is, and I don't know if you're the right audience to answer or not, is why are we diverting into apparently something that's likely overwhelmed already?
So the diversion is to the south. Initially, everything was going to the north. And the pipe was sized to take a certain amount of flow away from that initial path to the north.
So that initial pass, that's the yellow on the right.
So the initial
Where the cursor
goes up the green, goes through the green to get to the yellow on the left-hand side, the further north.
Pre-1930s or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so I understand, we're all a lot of lay people here. So on the right-hand side, we have the yellow arrow, which is the primary waterway for water coming through from the Merrimack area.
Correct.
When that gets overwhelmed, we're then, some automated system is diverting it north a little bit, and then it comes down south.
Correct.
And that waterway, that one that's now north leading to south, it sounds like we've already talked publicly here that there's already water coming into that. So wouldn't we assume that that is overwhelmed? So my question is why are we putting more water into a system that's likely already overwhelmed?
So that was there originally, and the yellow heading to the south was put in the 30s to help that situation.
Yep. But does it?
Can I just
Yeah.
ask a question? When you say we, who is we?
I forget how I used we, so remind me how I used we.
Why would we?
Oh, I don't know who we is.
Yeah.
Is we the town of Andover? Is it this automated system somehow that's just, and I don't even know how that works, how it automatically diverts water. Is that an Andover decision? Okay, that's one of my questions.
Right. I mean, so what, we're talking about this because the gentleman, some people had come and raised the issue.
Yep.
Really, the issue for us is what does this new project,
Yep.
if anything, do? So we're a little bit afield, but,
I gotcha.
I mean, I think the answer may be, does Andover need to do more? That may be, is there more that can be done? That might be the appropriate question, rather than why does one thing go one way or the other? If there's more that needs to be done, that might be the question.
Is it okay to ask? Is my question?
You can ask any question you
No,
want.
no,
but
does
yeah.
my question, I guess,
Yeah.
make sense what I'm asking?
Yes. Yeah.
I know you don't necessarily have the answer, and this is North Andover that I'm standing in right now.
No, it makes sense. It's just it's not necessarily that it's not necessarily an either or, that just because there's this one might have too much water and this one might have too much water, the answer may not be they should go
Yeah,
back
yeah.
and forth. The answer may be, well, maybe we need a third one,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe we need better control of other places. There may be a lot of different ways to go about it, and that assumes that it is overloaded. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't think we have the knowledge to be able
I
to
getcha.
get
All right,
there.
that helps. Thank you.
Okay.
I would just note, and the presentation just indicated there's actually less water shedding off with the proposed development than exists today. So the 4 CFS, I think it was called.
Yeah,
It was a reduction of what they're going
I
to
don't
shed
think it's a
into it.
big difference, but it's,
And I would
Yeah,
also
but-
add,
but it's some.
if I could just also add, what is coming from the college is a small percentage of what's coming from a much larger watershed. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, come on up, then, if you have a question or a comment.
So my hearing's so I
It's
may
okay.
have missed something, but,
That's okay. Just tell us who you are first, please.
and I'm Diane McCarran from Andover,
Okay,
on Napier Road, which is right across the street from Rock Ridge.
okay.
So, and I unfortunately missed the meeting last week. I know they've been pretty helpful all the time, so, but, when they built their retention pond years ago and corrected some of the watershed problems, you know, I'm right near there, the yellow area and the yellow line that's a 12-inch pipe. So this is kind of below their new construction area. When they did fix it like 10 or more years ago, it was fine, but recently it's been flooding again. So I guess I would just ask that you over-plan for stormwater drainage. You know, it is atop of the hill. It does go downward, you know, even if they're 25%, if that 25% is rushing in our direction, that's what gets it overwhelmed. And, you know, so I'm trying to figure that out now. I emailed Merrimack and I emailed the town of Andover because there is a problem with Rock Ridge. The piping is too small, which does bring up another issue. I do feel like the town of North Andover neglects Andover Street on that side of Route 114. I tried to look for stormwater drainage. I guess maybe you guys don't have any. And it looked like in the plan that the plan is for it to run into Andover and Elm Street drainage, the new construction area. So if that's the plan, that the stormwater is going to run into the Andover Elm Street existing drainage, which consists of the retention pond, I guess, and the not really very adequate.
Can you bring it up, just so that we can address that question? It was the one with the yellow lines. I'm sorry, go down.
It's the site.
Keep going
So
down.
actually, even on that
Keep
one, real
going.
quick, Gene, so the
Current site.
the project drainage for this site is gonna, or sorry, Gene, if you don't mind
Keep
going
going,
back.
Gene. No, Jeff, you use the current one, because her question is current first. It's in essence the same question that John was having yesterday. There you go, right here.
It's- Correct, it's the leftmost of those arrows before, so everything from this project site should not drain south. It drains north up Andover Street as part of the Mass DOT drainage system, and then to the west, outletting at that resource area.
So just to familiarize, so you know, so the where Elm Street is listed, that's approximately the entrance to the campus, right, Jeff?
Correct.
Right? And so for this particular site, it actually goes in place and goes up towards 114, and then around the office not the big office building, but that small white one there before the parking lot, and then goes back behind, and then goes down those big pipes. It doesn't actually come towards Napier and then in.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out since the storm from 3 or 4 weeks ago, because now I have water running down my yard. It was from my intersection, which is lower, but I do know that, you know, your those things that you said you built the last time, the big retention pond
Yep.
things near the football field and the berm, is that what you call it?
It's a berm, yeah.
Berm. So that overflows, I think, onto Rock Ridge. So I'm just saying, you know, we're having 3 or 4 inch storms every like other week. So I would definitely encourage over planning for stormwater drainage and definitely be mindful of all of us downhill. I'm having a new problem. I emailed Felipe in the town, and I'll keep trying to get in touch with them and figure it out. But
Okay.
you know,
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else? Okay, let's go to the next topic.
Okay, so we'll just go right to the next one. So there was yeah, just go to the next one, just in the due interest of time. One of the Planning Board members John Simon pointed out that it is not a really complete picture if you're going to show the roof of a building and not show what the systems are going to be on top. The architect at that meeting said it is not going to be what would have been seen in the past, which is a 3-foot screened-in area. These were going to be more individualized units at the top, and it would be very difficult to see them based on height and location on the top of the roof. And so to answer the question of what is a more honest depiction of the roof is this.
So we have mechanicals, and then we have solar. What
Yes.
those are? Okay.
It sounded like at the last meeting there was still some back and forth on whether you would have a gas hookup or it would be all electric. I'm presuming that would change also what the rooftop mechanicals would look like.
Hi, Tom Lassie, Keep 3, I'm the architect. Not really. I think the system will stay, those condensers will stay about the same size or are the same size. It doesn't really matter what system we pull heat from. It's a heat pump anyway. So it doesn't really matter if it's a gas-fired heat pump or an electric-fired heat pump. The system on the roof is the same system because it's just pulling, transfers heat from outside air to inside air. And so the system on the roof doesn't change.
Okay. Great.
Okay, keep
All right,
going.
Keep going. Let's see
Gene,
your
next.
questions or comments.
Just keep going. The next question, Gene, if you want to go to the next one, was what would this look like at night? So we've added a version of this in darkness. Now, I'm sure someone here is going to point out that the sky is not looking pitch dark. And that's because at some point we didn't feel it was appropriate to sit here and say this is what it's going to look like at 1 o'clock in the morning when all the lights are off inside and face the obvious question of why would you go through that, and someone could be confused that somehow this is going to be dark all the time. So we picked a point in time that we thought would be the most lit.
Okay.
Any other questions? We'll keep going. This was just more of the same renderings. Keep going. And then building height, this was just, this is exactly the same thing we showed before. Gina, you want to keep going? This is all part of the stakeout.
Well, can we go back to that for a
Yep,
second?
Sure.
All right, just again, so we had the balloons. Give us the heights of the buildings.
That exist.
No, proposed. Of the two proposed buildings. 4 levels, 47 feet.
Correct.
And is that consistent across the whole building? So is it 47 all the way across? Does it go from 42 to 47 to 44? Or are they consistent? Are both of them consistent all the way across?
It will vary a little bit. That's based on the average grade. So at the plan right sides of the buildings, the grade is going to be a little higher, about 4 feet higher. It does step down halfway for each of them. So that 48 is going to be the average between that 4-foot drop at the bottom. So it does vary. It's not a
The
straight
balloons
47
themselves were actually at the
across.
heights of each corner, not at the average for the whole building. So what you saw was reflective of that moment, not the average across all the site.
So the number you're quoting is the average. What's the highest?
Actually, maybe if we pull the elevation.
It's actually in the back. If you want
Yeah,
to keep
we might
going to the
have-
back,
if
it
we
was
could
in one of the
flip to-
previous presentations.
One of the elevation slides. It should be within a.
Yep, yes, yeah, just if you keep going, people don't mind we'll come back to all of this.
It should be generally within 2 feet either way of those numbers. So I would guess 46 is the shortest and.
Yep, keep going, Gene.
And
There- it
50
was-
is the highest.
We kept it in this deck just so in case someone asked this question, we could easily get to it, or maybe proving, here we go. There you go, Jeff, right there.
Okay. So let me zoom in on the dimensions there. I'm gonna blow it. Yeah.
I think to add 2 feet, looks like we're about in the middle. So you'd say 47.1. So you'd be at 49.1 at the tallest and
45.1.
at the shortest.
And you don't count any of the mechanicals in your count?
No,
Correct.
It's a calculation to the average roof surface from the average grade. It's a code requirement for building, basic building code or zoning code.
So it is.
It's an average to the roof surface. So it does not.
Not
Anything
including,
on top of the roof. Okay, so the mechanicals aren't included.
Correct.
Did you calculate the, every other building in the vicinity
So we
with
can,
the
Yes.
same?
Yes. No, now you can go back to the,
That was that
The
original
map.
slide.
sorry, yeah, they were gonna do that next. I just wanted to joke. I
yeah,
said, yeah.
yeah, that was exclusive of the steeples and the observatory domes, the extra features sticking out. So I think that's.
there we go, right here.
So I know that the church was one we talked about. That 48 feet is not for the spire. That's the ridge of the roof.
And the church is a gabled roof?
Yep, correct.
As opposed to a flat roof that goes up the full height on the whole thing?
Correct.
So
Correct.
the mass of it is less?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Austin Hall, which is immediately next to it,
Is
is the
flat
better
roof.
example
Yeah,
of that.
okay.
Yeah.
And could you tell me of all the other buildings, how close any of them are that are like Sullivan? How close is Sullivan Hall, which to the edge of the property line?
It's
It
probably.
would, it won't be in any, it won't be further up.
100. A little over 100.
No, these are just this building, and he's asking about another building on the campus. So you can go back to that one and,
60. It's probably 100, 120 ballpark.
To the edge of the property
To the
line?
property line, yeah.
And these are 30 feet to the edge of the
These are
property line.
30.
So they're 90 feet closer to the street than any other building on campus, correct?
To the property line, I think the street edge is actually. like,
Well, I'm just asking,
Yeah,
I'd
that much
rather do
in
the property
relation.
line as opposed to the street edge, because, it's the
Yeah.
public right away.
Yeah.
I'm just
yep.
trying to get a
An
comparison.
order of magnitude, you're not off.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, let's keep going.
Okay. Gene, you want to keep going? And we will, this is just where the balloons were, so I don't think we need to cover this. Keep going. Okay, so we attempted at we all attempted, both on our side and on your side, to try to actually start to do some calculations. So we just thought it would be easiest to do this ourselves here, and then we go from there. So you go to the next slide. So just as a reminder, Jeff can go from here about what the FAR is in the district zones.
Sure. So we kind of took the same building height exercise and just wanted to show the adjacent districts and what those FAR, the floor area ratio requirements were, which is the gross floor area divided by the property area. So the R5 districts in pink, I believe, is 0.75. The R3 districts do not have the FAR requirement. Areas to north, and that's the parcel that the college campus is located on. The business districts in green are bigger, 1.5, and the general business in blue also does not have a requirement, but wanted to just show some context as to the current.
So what is the actual FAR of your project?
All right, so if.
Because that buildings like this are not normally allowed in an R3 district, so,
So if we were to take, we ran two scenarios here to not, look at the various parcels on campus. But if we assumed from discussion last week, we took our limit of work, which is about 4 acres, that's the boundary in blue. If that were considered our property boundary based on the 139,600 square foot between the two buildings and all the floors combined would be an FAR of 0.79.
Okay.
If we took one step back and used, this is the next interim lot, interior lot. This was the one formerly owned by the Augustinians, but we would be including the program areas for the Collegiate Church and Austin Hall, but using the parcel boundary in black It's a little bit higher, but pretty similar and consistent, 0.8, and that's just shy of a 7-acre parcel.
While you have this in front of you, can you talk about why you didn't extend this building into Andover at all?
Why wasn't it made just longer along the path?
Yeah.
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. Number one is we want to be able to make sure that in some time in the future, we haven't dragged out so much of this space that there's no future growth. There's no plan right now, but I don't want to take that away. Number two is the more you go along that entire path, you're just taking away more of you're walling off more from the collegiate church to the outside. Three, we wanted to make sure there was, I mean, not that it matters in the long term, but that's probably where the marshalling yard is going to go in terms of the construction project.
I'm sorry.
The marshal, yeah, where all the contractors are, where all the materials get dropped, all the rest of that stuff. And last, I just go back, all the way back to the presentation I did at the first meeting for this cycle and all the way back to 2021, when we were looking at, what is the potential of a longer term plan. It really became clear that the future of that driveway in and what goes on that corner becomes significant some point in the future, and we didn't want to go much further into that. I think those are sort of the biggest reasons. Okay, keep going. Up, go back up, sorry. And this, keep going, back up. Okay, and this, for some of us when we were on the site, this became more clear, but we just thought while we were doing spaces, just how big some of the open spaces were. And I think we did not do a very good job at the prior meeting of explaining all of that. So, John, it was actually your questions and trying to calculate that we figured it'd just be easier to show this so that it was on the record, and just how much space there is. And then I've already forgotten what the next slide is. Gene, I apologize. Oh, and then the last one and this was actually came up at the zoning, but originally we had shown a slide which was what is it from the building to the property line, and then there was a whole series of questions about what it is from the building to the curb, and then what it will be from the building to the next curb based on what we understand to be the Mass DOT plan. So black is from building proposed to property line. Light blue, which is the 54, 56, and 70, is from the building to the curb. And then the dark blue is the adjustment that would be made when the Mass DOT redesign of 114 is complete. And then the next chapter was we did a thing on parking.
Okay, so does anyone else have
sorry.
No, it's okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments on, why don't I read actually, what are the chapters coming up?
Parking and peer review updates, and I think that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
We're almost done.
So let me read the resident comment because I think it most aptly goes with what we just discussed. All right, this is from Dan Hartshorn. It says, "Hi Gene, I was redirected to contact you directly after submitting a request to the main town report it link. Merrimack College is proposing a huge new set of buildings at the corner of 114 and Elm Street, Andover Street. We live one block over in Andover on Fox Hill Road, and the proposed plan to add 2 large buildings to house roughly 540 new students will add even more traffic and bottleneck to that intersection and surrounding neighborhoods. The school is already a headache regarding their lack of action related to student-specific issues. Vandalism, using our addresses for Ubers and food deliveries, discarding trash, parking overnight, etc. And this new project will only exacerbate an already large problem. Our neighborhood group will be attending future meetings related to this project. We have a meeting scheduled with Merrimack on October 12th at 7 p.m. And I urge someone from the North Andover Town office to attend as well to hear all of our concerns. For many of the same reasons the Royal Crest project was denied, we have similar concerns that we hope you take into consideration when ruling on this project. Thanks in advance for your time. Dan Hartshorn. No address.
What you said at the beginning.
Yeah, he's on Fox Hill Road.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
We did have that
In
meeting.
Andover, okay, yes.
We did
So-
have that meeting.
And
There
there
was-
was an invitation to the meeting, so.
Yep, we had
apparently he
about, it was
got
about
so
a
that's good.
dozen people from that. I actually thought it was a pretty good meeting. There is no question. We had a lengthy conversation about it. There is, without going into enormous detail, if you are to drive from Andover Main Street towards the campus, and you were to follow a GPS structure, right? You just plug in GPS to get to the front door of Merrimack College. It doesn't take you up Andover, up Elm, into Andover and into the gate. It is just that much longer to take that route on GPS than it is to go up and take an immediate left into Fox Hill and go into the neighborhood, and then that dead ends against the campus. And so, yes, they are, and we are, all having an enormous frustration because Ubers, Grubhubs, everything that think they're coming to the campus suddenly find themselves in a neighborhood, and then they're stuck. Problem number one. Problem number two is we are finding that there are some students who, instead of now getting frustrated that their stuff's not getting onto the campus, are giving addresses and then trying to meet the car out there. And, well, let's just say that's not gone very well for them, the neighbors. We actually have some staff that are living there that get these themselves. And my practice right now is if they're waking a neighbor up because they have a Grubhub order, then the students' parents are going to get woken up in the middle of the night too. So it's all fun for everybody. We're working with the neighbors to try to figure out how to get GPS systems to track to a point on the campus that will take everyone out of the traffic into the neighborhood. That's not an easy thing to do. When we did the North Campus project, which is the academic buildings and the housing, that was an area where there was a little road that went in off Fox Hill. You could actually go Fox Hill onto the campus, come right out and get right onto 114 and circumvent the intersection. And there are still, even 8 years later, some GPS structures that still are putting that back on its map. We've been working with Google and Apple and Waze and all the rest to try to create a logarithm where it doesn't put us back to that place, but as of yet, that has not been a great success.
I didn't know you could even do that. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Just had one other question, and stepping back to the building, because you did show some renderings, can you give me examples of other universities that have similar buildings? That's my first question, then there's a second part. I'm just having some context of what's something that's similar someplace else.
Just off the top of my head, or do you want me to come back? and say-
If you can come back, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
trying to put you on the
No,
spot
no,
here.
I would-
I'm just trying to
yeah.
get some context. So,
Yeah,
you know.
we'll bring you back some, because we're obviously going to come back, so that's not an issue. I think UMass Dartmouth jumps up to mind as one right off the bat, because I think that this is a similar structure to what our partners have done. But I will come back with a bunch of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, we keep going.
keep going.
And
So, we have a comment, yeah?
Oh.
Go. Come on up.
So my name is Melinda Perone, and I live at 65 Meadowwood Road, so that's on the other side in North Andover. And I had two questions and one comment. And the first question was with regards to noise reduction, because that's a very, very busy intersection. So I was concerned for the students. Question is, what kind of noise reduction is there going to be for the students within the building? The second thing was that we see a lot of the students walking down to Chipotle or to any of the other restaurants. So where are these students going to be eating? We see where the students are going down now, but where will they be eating on campus? That's the second question. And the third statement was that if there's a great emphasis that you're placing on Christ the Teacher Church. My husband and I moved to North Andover in 2008, And at that time, there were lots of events that welcomed the public onto campus. There were events, movies or shows. Our babysitter came from Merrimack College. And then we noticed that it was all cut. And so Merrimack College sits within us, within our whole community, without interaction with the citizens. And we found that our interaction is waiting in line at Chipotle behind the students. So I think that contributes a lot to our difficulty in communicating with the school as a community. So.
Thank you. Let me just answer those questions. The primary space to eat on the campus is either in Monica's kitchen, which is at the church, or it's in the dining hall, which is centered to the campus. I would imagine that a student that today goes to Chipotle and lives in that building may continue to go. I don't think they go all the time, but they certainly will go out on occasion. As it relates to the Rogers Center, which was probably where you were seeing the most amount of events, plays, and things of that nature. Just an interesting, slightly sad point to all of that is that while we do have a vibrant arts program, the reality is that much of what you actually saw, even if it had students in it, were actually third-party groups that used that facility, and it doesn't have enough seats for them to continue to use it, so they've sought other locations, and so over time, we just got phased out of hosting them.
Noise reduction.
Oh, and sound, thank you. So I'll let all the engineers answer that specifically, but I'm sure it's all to do with windows and the rest, but go ahead.
Yep. So these buildings will very likely have triple glazed windows, which will be very sound attenuating. The building will also have exterior rigid insulation, bat insulation in the cavities. So and then and then in the building there's floor structures, and in between the walls those are all insulated. I think you're talking more about environmental noise than internal noise. So with the insulation on the building and the triple glaze, they'll be heavily insulated from either weather and sound. So usually thermal insulation is also a great sound insulator, so twofold.
Thank you for your questions and your concern. We're just going to keep going then.
Well, no,
unless there's any
hold
other-
on, I thought I
Go
saw,
ahead.
did I see
One
someone
more?
else? Yep.
Go ahead.
I didn't get these in at the right time, but I just had three major concerns. Please overplan for stormwater runoff.
Yep.
The second one was the town of Andover looking at, could somebody, if you have time, come park on my road, Napier Road in Andover at 3 o'clock any weekday, and look at the traffic trying to go towards North Andover. They can't get onto 114 because there's only really one lane until you get right there. I feel like that should be a town of North Andover fix, maybe add a wider lane so people can get onto 114 easier. So I don't know, you see the DOT plan to Route 114, but you should think about your neglect of Andover Street on that side of Route 114. It's causing a major traffic log jam in my neighborhood every day at 3 o'clock. And there won't be much room, depending on where these buildings are, to fix it in the future. And the last thing was, we're on town line zoning here. There are houses right after this. Mine is the third house. It's 2 stories high. So, you're talking about a 4-story building. You really should be planning to meld with the neighborhood next to you. So just to please make sure that's what's happening to, when you allow these buildings and the building heights.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
I just want to say one thing. What did come up in the meeting with the Andover residents, I think would be helpful for you, is that the road that you're describing, which I would love to see another lane in, is actually a part of the Mass DOT highway. It's not part of Andover. Mass DOT is going through a 114 redesign. And now that we've got your email, I will make sure that we give you, when we hear that there's a meeting with Mass DOT about that intersection and area, we'll make sure you're included as well until they get you on their regular mailing so that you can weigh in on that.
It's just that it's Andover Street, it's not 114.
No, 114 goes all the way to the line. That part of Andover, all the way to the North Andover line, is part of Mass DOT. It's part of the highway transportation system. It's not a town road.
So but you didn't show any DOT restrictions on that picture against Andover Street?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
so why don't we talk about that one afterward, just because
Sure.
it's not really part of this project either way.
Okay.
Okay,
There was a quick question in parking, which was, we had given a chart, which was 2019. The question that came back was what has been added in terms of spaces since that chart? Seeing that was a chart that had been seen before, and so this is answering that question. What additional spaces have come up? And as I spot checked over my head in that meeting, it was 300 that are leased. That came in at 2020, and then the 126 that we talked about that we aren't using, barely more than half over at 510 and 530. So the number of supply has gone up since what was on that chart. And again, we've had during different times of the day, we've had still open spaces, and there are other times of the day we have plenty open spaces. And I'd said in the meeting that there was once or twice a year where we used like all the grass that we could possibly find, and on the walkthrough you saw what some of that result was as a result of homecoming, and that was the answer to the parking question that had come up. And then the last section here is just what had already been asked, is where we are existing in department and peer review updates. Jean had mentioned that the stormwater one was complete. We've been to the zoning board. We're returning to them on the 14th. And Mass DOT highway access permit to follow after the local approvals, as is the normal course.
okay.
And I think that is the end. I think everything after that was just in case we needed it. So happy to answer any other questions, but there was nothing else here that was new. It's just all the old stuff that, in case we needed to bring it up.
Okay, any additional board member questions or comments for now? Any additional public comments for now? Anything else come in, Gene? Okay, so what's next?
What's next for us is we're back at the zoning meeting in several weeks, and we'll come back after that. The only thing that I think we have, unless be happy to be proven wrong, is we'll come back to provide some examples of something similar. I assume not just similar, but similar situated in other similarly situated towns or locales, not something that doesn't fit that.
So what date, is that November 21st?
What's the next meeting?
Well, no, our next meeting is November 7th, but
Yeah.
if they're going to the
I think if you
ZBA,
go up to the ZBA meeting is actually the last bullet with a date.
The 14th.
the 14th, so would this meeting get continued until the 21st?
So you have a shot clock on the application. I've spoken to a couple times. So they filed it on, I think, August 14th. You need to render a decision by November 15th unless the applicants agree to an extension. And I would suggest you need an extension because
Yeah, I mean, if they're not gonna go,
To ZBA until the 14th.
to the 14th.
Right.
I mean,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
we're at like at least a month.
All right, so should we put it on the November 7th for an extension, or should we just put it on for the November 21st, assuming an extension?
I think we have to put it on for the 7th, because what are you gonna do if they don't have an
Okay,
extension?
so put it on for November 7th. If there's nothing additional to really present at that time, and since you haven't been to the ZBA, file for the extension, and then we can continue it until the 21st. Okay. I won't be here the 21st, but I don't anticipate missing any other meetings after that, so shouldn't be a problem, but.
So does it make sense to extend to the first meeting in December, which I think is the second, December 2nd?
Well, why don't we just schedule it for the 21st?
Okay.
See where we're at, see if there's other stuff to present, and how
Okay.
there may be stuff from the ZBA that you need to do. Just play it by ear.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm-
And we'll
I'm-
update this group as we go. As we
I'm just
always
away that.
do. Yep. Okay?
I think, oh no, yeah. I don't think I'm back yet that weekend. Okay, all right.
Anything else?
Nope,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, 2024 Planning Board meeting calendar. Can I get a motion to approve the calendar? I didn't see any issues with it.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, there's a couple other things, discussion items, the water levels, planning board regulations. I do want to get to those, but I think we need the time when we're kind of focused. I think next meeting, actually, when we don't have this, would be a great time to do that. So we're going to carry those until the 7th. Get a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 19th and October 3rd.
So move, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Do you have any public comment for anything else? Maybe items that were on the agenda that we're not going to comment on? Could you just ask? We got people still.
Yeah,
here.
is there anything that anybody else wanted to be heard on that we didn't already cover on the agenda?
Well, I didn't want to go through, I'm also on the end of.
Well, I don't want to, if it's about the Merrimack, all right, we can, if you want to ask a question to one of us or to Gina afterwards, we can do that. Okay, I just don't want to do it without the people here. Okay. I will say, one thing that, so the Bricks Grill at the Takis Market has opened. So I just enjoy when we've permitted something a while back. This was a project we permitted several years ago, and it included the market and a restaurant. The market was built relatively quickly, and there was some, different back and forth and changes to the plans and stuff like that. And now the restaurant is just open now, and it's just kind of nice when something that we actually went through the time of doing has come to fruition. So that restaurant is now fully open. So I thought that's kind of cool.
Any good?
I haven't been there yet. It looked the beer menu looks excellent. But I haven't been there yet. I was soon. It's right. It's not on my way home, but it's not out of my way home. So yeah, so it looks pretty good. Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Can we get a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Yeah, the beer menu looks. There's some stuff.